I am going to show you the absolute pinnacle of my Nirvana guitar collecting. The main mission of this YouTube channel is to replicate Kurt Cobain's guitars and to tell their individual stories. In my head, the highest tier possible of replicating a famous guitar is getting something that is one for one to the original. Everything down to the wood material, body color, and even having parts made by the same hands that made the original. I have been extremely lucky and fortunate to have collected many of my favorite Nirvana guitars. There are a few that I consider to be my grails. Guitars that I look at as more than just replicas, but as accurate time capsules to the past. Something I can hold and say, wow, this must be how Kurt Cobain's actual guitar felt in his hands as he was making music history with it. There's always a lot of variables, of course, and we can't speak definitively and never truly know how a particular instrument feels unless we are fortunate enough to have it in our own hands. Nirvana is the reason why I started playing guitar, and there is no instrument that has had more of an impact on my life than Kurt Cobain's Skystang I. I've been on a whirlwind journey revolving around this specific guitar that has lasted roughly 18 years. And with the guitar that I'm about to show you, I feel like I have gone full circle and have reached the conclusion of that story. I don't think I can possibly go any further than this unless I one day win the lottery and buy the actual guitar. That journey started with teenage Eric being mesmerized by the almost mystic looking blue and red guitar he was seeing in so many live Nirvana videos on YouTube, putting photos of it up on the wall of his childhood room, to the excitement of taking a trip to Seattle to see it in person behind glass, and to the monumentally life-changing day of being handed the actual thing by the architect behind it and then being given permission to play that fabled instrument that had put a spell on teenage Eric all those years ago. And now, after all that, I'm extremely excited to say that I now have a Skystang I that is a one-for-one replica. A mirror image of one of the most iconic instruments of the 90s. Something that looks and feels identical to the real deal. This is my journey in perfecting my favorite Kurt Cobain guitar, Skystang I. I'm going to lay out all that we know about the specs of Kurt's actual Skystang I, and then break down how my build here has a faithful recreation of every major component. To understand the specs of the real deal, we need to go back to the summer of 1993 to trace its origins, and then follow it throughout the In Utero tour in late 1993 and early 1994 to see all that it went through. In the summer of 1993, Kurt Cobain wanted a couple USA-made Fender Mustangs for the upcoming In Utero tour. But Fender USA wasn't equipped to make left-handed Fender Mustang necks at the time, and instead asked Fender Japan to handle this. Fender Japan refused to ship only a couple, prompting Kurt to order 10 Mustangs total. For this order, left-handed MG69 Mustangs were built in the Fujigen factory in Japan by custom shop master builder Scott Zimmerman. They were sent out over time in various shipments, and sadly the last 4 were not ready until after Kurt passed. A friend of mine who recently spoke to Scott Zimmerman one-on-one said that Scott said that he believes that Kurt would have paid around $600 per Mustang in this order. The first pair was shipped to Kurt on June 28, 1993, one red and one blue. These would go on to become Skystang I and Orange Stang. They were sent out as 2 completely stock, left-handed MG69 Fender Mustangs, with 2 single-coil pickups and a standard Mustang bridge. Focusing in now on Skystang I, there are 2 unique differences that make it stand out from the standard MG69s of the time that were not made in the custom shop. First is the body's wood type. 90s MIJ MG69s were largely made of basswood, but Scott Zimmerman himself has confirmed that Kurt's Mustangs were made of alder, which could be considered an unusual choice for that model and time. I asked Nirvana guitar tech Ernie Bailey if he by chance recalls whether he or Kurt specifically requested alder bodies for this Mustang order, to which he said, "I don't recall discussing the wood choice with Kurt, mainly because it's been 30 plus years, but that is the kind of thing we commonly talked about, and I could see him having a strong opinion about it. So the more that we dig, the deeper the rabbit hole gets." If he did care about this, then why would Kurt specifically request alder? The simplest answer might be because of Kurt's competition Mustang, a guitar that he seemed to like to reference when working with the Fender custom shop. For example, he specifically requested that his Jag Stang have the same neck as his Comp Stang, but that's a loaded and complicated story for another time. 1969 Fender competition Mustangs were made of either alder or poplar. If we look at the exposed wood and damage on the Comp Stang present day, we can see that the wood has taken the shape of the knobs of the monitor board it was smashed hard against in October of 1991. After reaching out and talking to a woodworker about this, I learned that this would be characteristic of poplar and to a lesser extent alder. Swamp ash, which is an even harder wood than both poplar and alder, would almost certainly not react in this way. It doesn't seem crazy to think that Kurt just simply requested the same wood type as his Fender competition Mustang, and then when Fender Japan went to reference its own records, then saw that that model would have been either made with alder or poplar, all it would have taken was one person in the shop saying, well, between those two, let's go with alder. Let me make it really clear though that this is all just my speculation and educated guess. While we do know with certainty, thanks to Mr. Zimmerman, that Skystang I is indeed made of alder, this is just my roundabout hypothesis as to why that specific wood might have been chosen as opposed to the standard base wood for MG69s of the time. The second unique difference is the body color. MG69s were available in Sonic Blue, but Fender is notorious for using the same color name for many varying different shades and sometimes just different colors altogether. What we see on a lot of 90s MG69s present day is a green/teal tint. A lot of people like to say that this is simply the result of an originally vibrant Sonic Blue aging, but looking at the color present day of 33-year-old Skystang I tells a different story. Because by that logic, present day this shouldn't be a Skystang, it should be a green Stang, when it's obviously not. So why this difference in color? The answer is Fujigen started spraying over the blue with a vintage tint in an effort to make it look more aged. Looking at the neck pocket of the body of my Sonic Blue 1995 MG69, we can clearly see the difference as to where the tint matches the rest of the body and a small portion that did not get hit with the tint, which would make it look much closer to Kurt's Skystangs. These spots would not be affected by aging because they're not exposed to UV. These are simply just different shades of blue that share the same exact name for whatever reason. Upon receiving the guitar in this state from the Fender Custom Shop in Japan, Ernie modded it to be road ready for Nirvana. The bridge single coil was replaced with the Seymour Duncan JB. The JB had long legs and was originally body mounted. The Seymour Duncan logo was scratched off by Ernie himself. The pickguard had to be routed for a full-size humbucker, which is why we can still see this single coil screw hole. While not a mod, we do have to acknowledge the beautiful and radiant red Tort pickguard. It features a very distinctive yellow V-shaped speck between the pickups, which has gone on to become an iconic visual feature in its own right. The bridge was replaced with a small post Nashville-style Tune-O-Matic bridge. At this point, it was very common for Kurt's guitars to get a Tune-O-Matic. I asked Ernie about this specifically while I was holding Skystang and pointed to the bridge, saying, why is this the only in utero Stang to get a Nashville-style tom? To which Ernie said simply, that was just the tom that I had laying around ready to go. I probably took that off of one of my own guitars. The tailpiece was flipped, locked down, and the springs removed. Kurt notoriously hated the vibrato bar and preferred it to be locked down. Plus, this helped with tuning stability after the addition of the Tune-O-Matic. The stock strap pins were replaced with Schaller strap locks. Throughout the tour, the strap pins would go on to be relocated numerous times. As for the neck, the nut had to be cut for heavier strings. On Skystang I, Kurt used GHS Boomers 10-52. The neck was shimmed to accommodate the new bridge, and Ernie used pieces of a playing card from the Andy Griffin Show. He thought this was funny because of Floyd the Barber. It's almost like a hidden, unseen Easter egg within the guitar. In this form, the mighty Skystang I first takes the stage on October 18th, 1993, at the very first show of the In Utero tour. It did not take long for this guitar to become not only the tour's #1, but for it to become Kurt's most played Mustang, period. When ranking Kurt's most played guitars, Skystang I is #2, only being beaten out by the Jaguar. Of the 63 In Utero tour shows, there is currently documentation to show that Skystang I was used at least 53 of these shows. But keep in mind that there are numerous shows where there is currently no surfaced photos or videos, so there is a very real chance that this guitar was played on every single date of the tour. The defining In Utero era performance for many fans is Live and Loud, which took place on December 13th, 1993 at Pier 48 in Seattle. Skystang I was used for every song except for one, and this concert gives us the best and clearest visuals we currently have of Kurt playing his blue and red workhorse. In February of 1994, Nirvana arrived in Europe for the second leg of the In Utero tour. Skystang I then undergoes some subtle changes, bringing it to its final form. Kurt asked In Utero guitar tech Jim Vincent to cut down the pickup switches, as he was getting tired of the side of his hand bleeding from accidentally hitting the switches. Sometime between February 22nd and February 24th, the JB gets pickguard mounted. We don't really have an official explanation explanation why, but here's my theory. The February 22nd show ends with Skystang I getting thrown hard, appearing to land face down. The next day, on February 23rd, Kurt uses Skystang II when performing on the Tunnel TV program. And on February 24th, we can see the JB is now pickguard mounted. Could the big throw on February 22nd have damaged the JB so much that the backup Skystang had to be used the next day while number one was getting repaired? Also, the top left-hand corner of the JB is chewed up, for lack of a better term, which I like to imagine might have also been the result of the big throw on the 22nd. Interestingly, the two JB screws are not perfectly in line, the right one being the original hole that was meant for a single coil, and the left being the one that we can assume Jim Vincent made. Since the right upper screw was never intended to be used for a humbucker, the JB is not perfectly horizontal. This seems to be a just fix it and get it working repair. There's a good chance that since the top screw was off center, if the pickup was mounted straight, it would no longer fit the route, and that'd be way more work for a touring guitar tech. Something that I also think is worth mentioning is that starting on the European leg of the tour, we can see that Skystang I now has a black Fort Bryant guitar strap. On the entire American leg, it looks like Kurt was using the butt end of the strap in front, so we can't see which brand it is, but the Fort Bryant logo is on full display in February. It's visible until February 27th, Nirvana's second to last show, where it is now covered in black duct tape. That duct tape is still on the strap present day. Alright, now I'm going to show you what I believe will forever be the peak of my Nirvana guitar collection. I know that a lot of Nirvana gearheads consider an ultra-accurate Kurt Jaguar build to be like the ultimate Nirvana replica that you could possibly have. Just with the impact that this guitar and its tones has had on me, plus my experiences tied to it, nothing will top this one for me personally. At its base, this guitar that I'm holding started out as a 2012 Fender Kurt Cobain Signature Mustang. I got it in early 2014. I remember I had been saving up for a long time. I had just worked a 12-hour Black Friday shift at my first retail job and proudly used that paycheck to purchase this guitar. I got it for $750 on eBay. Its condition was listed as refurbished, but in reality, I think it was brand new. It came with the plastic protective film on the pickguard and with all the tags. A cool one in particular being this one advertising that you could redeem a Smells Like Teen Spirit vinyl single while supplies last. I immediately tried to claim one, but this model had been out for 2 years at that point, so I was too late. There are a lot of things that Fender got wrong on the Sonic Blue model. For example, this is supposed to be Skystang II, but that guitar never had black switches or a cream single coil pickup cover. But what Fender did get right, they really got right. This body was made in the Fujigen factory in Japan. It is made out of alder, and it is the absolute correct shade of Sonic Blue. I can tell you that confidently, not from zooming in on auction pictures, but from my first-hand findings of documenting Skystang I's actual color in person. But you don't necessarily need to hunt down a KC Signature Mustang specifically if you're after the accurate shade of Sonic Blue. On the right here is my Skystang, and on the left is my tech Jeff's Skystang. His has a 2010 body and a 1995 MIJ neck. Both of these body colors, as you can see, are identical. The key is just to find a Sonic Blue body that did not get the vintage tint. I'm gonna link a video right here that details everything I did to make this guitar as accurate as possible, while still keeping it a full-on Kurt Cobain Signature Mustang. Those changes include a white single coil cover, white JB, small post Nashville-style two-pneumatic bridge, and white pickup switches. I was so happy to have this guitar in that state, and I considered it done at the time. But little did I know, my life was about to change shortly after these rounds of mods were completed. In October of 2023, I was invited by Julian's Auctions to document Kurt's actual Skystang I shortly before they were going to announce its auction. Not only did I have access to my favorite guitar of all time, but I met Kurt's brother Chad Cobain and Nirvana guitar tech Ernie Bailey there. Ernie is one of my heroes and the one who first handed the guitar to me and then patiently answered every nerdy question I had about it. Extremely surreal experience that was truly a dream come true. I documented and measured every part of this guitar. All the information that I gathered is presented in the video that is linked right here. On the plane ride home from this experience, I couldn't stop thinking about how I wanted my own Skystang at home to look like the actual Skystang as it was in my lap as I played heart-shaped box and radio-friendly unit shifter on it. My outstanding guitar tech, Jeff at Lomic Guitars, made this a reality. I sent him my KC Signature Mustang for a European tour makeover. He made a custom pickguard using the close-up photos I took of the actual guitar and perfectly replicated its unique and distinct torque pattern. This is the absolute best and most accurate Skystang pickguard that has ever been produced. I say that as someone who has seen the competition in person and had the actual thing so close to my face that I could smell it. Jeff pickguard mounted the JB and went the extra mile of damaging it just like Kurt's. Being the obsessive completist that I am, I bought an Andy Griffin Floyd the Barber playing card and Jeff used that as the shim. I also had Jeff cut the pickup switches, but he took it upon himself to go the extra mile of making sure the switches were placed in the same orientation as the real deal. I consider this form right here to be as far as you can take a stock Fender Kurt Cobain signature Mustang to be an accurate Skystang I build, but I have just made two very big changes which I believe makes this guitar no longer a signature model tribute build, but a one-for-one as accurate as possible replica. First is my Seymour Duncan custom shop JBJ. There is an excellent video Fender put out 12 years ago that shows them taking measurements of the actual Skystang II for the KC signature Mustang, which gave us absolutely invaluable insight into the guitar. It's only on screen for a few seconds, but we see that Skystang II has a stamped initial Seymour Duncan JB, specifically a JBJ. Throughout the 80s and 90s, there were specific winders at Seymour Duncan who wound and final assembled the pickups. They would put their initial on the back label after the model name. So there are multiple variations of these vintage stamped JBs that were hand wound by specific people. JBJs are the most sought out of the JB initials nowadays. They signify that they were wound by Marcela Juarez, who present day manages the Seymour Duncan custom shop. Let me tell you all, this was my first experience ordering from the Seymour Duncan custom shop and they did not disappoint at all, as Miss Juarez herself wound, signed, and stamped the back of my pickup. We don't know what stamp JB Skystang I has, but knowing that I have a JB that was wound by the same hands that made the JB and Skystang II is a huge thrill. And for this next part, it may seem counterintuitive, and I'm prepared for people to freak out at me over this, but I did have the damage of Kurt's JB replicated on my custom shop JBJ. I mean, if we're going all out to this level, no stone is going to be left unturned. Now for the big question. How does a premium priced custom shop JB compare to a modern / standard JB? I recorded before and after sound samples of this guitar while I had both pickups to A/B them. You will see the appearance of the headstock change, but that is just before and after refinishing. It is the same exact neck in both clips. So in this comparison, literally everything is the same except for which JB is being used. Do you hear a difference? Two small but very satisfying details in my opinion have to do with the strap. I have a black Fort Bryan strap in which I have covered the logo with duct tape and replaced the strap pins with Schaller strap locks. My Skystang II has the same strap setup, but I've left the logo visible as was on the real number 2. Last but certainly not least is this new to me vintage neck. This is an MIJ 1993 MG69 Fender Mustang neck that was made in the Fujigen factory. I refinished the headstock myself just to have the Fender logo on its own. This neck has an N serial number, and for reference, Kurt's was an O. This is just one letter off, meaning this neck was made just one batch prior to the O batch that included Kurt's. I was born in '93, and of course the majority of the In Utero tour and Live and Loud specifically all happened in '93. So to have a birth year neck on this Skystang that actually feels and plays like the real thing is seriously just too good to be true. I have never forgotten how Kurt's Skystang I felt in my hands. While this right here was happening, I was thinking to myself, this is a once-in-a-lifetime circumstance that is happening right now. This guitar will never be in my hands ever again. I need to soak up and absorb every single second of this right now. One of the biggest things that has never left me is how this neck felt. This is the feel I've been chasing and dreaming of owning ever since Kurt's guitar was in my hands. My great friend Tor recently sent me a Q serial 1993 MIJ MG69 neck. That neck went onto my Skystang II build. That neck feels so good and so much like Kurt's. I thought that it wasn't possible to get any closer, but this N serial neck has proved that wrong. This neck is even slimmer and more reminiscent of Kurt's. Also, I want to note that I've switched out the neck plate to be the classic Fender F logo just like Kurt's. And the cooler KC signature neck plate is now on my Nightstang I. The most comfortable Fender neck I have ever owned, and a giant piece of completing this project. It 100% brings me back to that unreal feeling of holding Kurt's actual guitar, as this neck feels identical. Again, I have this neck because of Tor, and I am out of words to properly thank you, my man, for your generosity and for your friendship. Thank you so much for helping me complete this dream Nirvana build. I have a lot of people to thank for this, and the special shout out needs to go to my dude, Jeff from Lomig Guitars. Jeff, you are seriously the best tech and the best friend that a Nirvana gear nerd could ever ask for. Thank you for entertaining all my ridiculous requests, and for enabling this nerdy gear obsession of mine. You've made so many of my guitar dreams come true, but I feel like saying that you did it for this one, the peak of my Nirvana guitar collecting, just doesn't do it justice. Simply put, because I'm out of words, thank you. I also gotta thank Nirvana guitar techs Ernie Bailey and Jim Vincent. You both have been so generous with your time and your stories. Thank you for providing incredible and invaluable insight that not only helped me make this replica perfect, but also just widened our collective understanding of this historic and iconic guitar. You two both had a hand in music history, and it's an absolute honor just to be given permission to share your memories and to help tell and illustrate the complete story. Last, but certainly not least, I want to thank you all for watching and for the continued support throughout the years. If you've been following my channel, then you know that this is not the first, second, or third time I've gone on and on about how much I love Skystang I. After everything that's been covered here on the channel pertaining to this guitar, I feel like this right here is the logical conclusion to the Nirvana Guitars Skystang I saga, ending with a near perfect and beautiful replica of it. I honestly do not see how we can take this story any further, unless of course the real Skystang I surfaces publicly again, and we get to go say hi to our favorite offset guitar again. Fingers crossed, because we never know what the future might bring. Thank you so much for watching, and an extra special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nirvana Guitars. Subscribe right here on YouTube for more weekly Nirvana gear videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.